okay? Third, don't say no word, okay? So just do like the first five words from there that you think you would work with, and just delete the first consonant, just to get a sense of that. And we're saying don't say. It's listed right here, first letter deletion.
Can I ask, if you're doing like a combo sound, like a consonant team, would you delete the entire sound?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because that, yeah. Third, don't say. Okay. All right, let's just do a few. Then we're gonna switch. We're gonna go right through these.
All right, so
Don't say
thick, don't say
don't say hick.
black,
Things,
don't say
Probably shouldn't have picked that word.
there we go. Lost,
Ran,
don't say
jumped, don't say
grass, don't say grass. Walk, don't say walk.
Minute, don't say
It's a hard one.
In it.
Sand,
For
don't say
slips.
And
It's not because it's not a consonant.
Okay.
So you would do.
So the other switch, let's go to last letter now.
I have a question.
Yeah.
If they say it incorrectly, do you use like a specific correction phrase, or do you just ask them to do?
I slow it down
Okay.
rather than say anything. If I go last and he goes last, which is what they'll do, I'll say last, don't say oh. And if he can't do it, then you go to blocks and just show this one's missing. And if you have to, you can go to the board and show it, but yeah. The goal is to get him to hear it auditorily. So slow down, blocks, letters.
And can you show the student the book or the word, or do you?
In my computer program, I have to do that
Okay.
for the phonemic awareness activities. But I can when I'm showing them what the technique is. That's what I'm doing on the computer. But it's kind of defeats the purpose.
Mm-hmm.
We want this strictly to be the auditory cortex that's being fired up. Okay, so try the last letter. So that would be like Sam, don't say sa. Don't worry about that being an open syllable. The kid won't know that at this level. See? Yeah, a lot of people worry about that when I go sa, add an M, and the board, and they'll go, wasn't that open? Well, we haven't even taught open yet. He doesn't even know what open is. Who cares? You know.
Ranch, don't say
Or hip, don't say problem,
Stuff,
don't
don't
say
say
kid, don't say
truck, don't say
wit,
sled, don't say
funny, don't say
mist, don't say
gags, don't say direct,
yeah,
don't say
cops, don't say
set, don't
stuff,
say
don't say don't say
strange,
stuff.
left, don't say
Okay, good. Now, let's go to blend deletion. And so you'll have clash, don't say is lash. This is harder. Crash, don't say rude. This is definitely harder. Yeah.
What about with silent letters, for instance, dumb?
I would say dumb, don't say because it's all auditorily. He's not even looking at the word. He doesn't know there's a B there.
Right.
You know, so I say dumb, don't say Yeah. All right, so blend deletion. Let's go with.
travel, don't say just a few places, don't say grabbed, don't
Yeah,
say
so
sled,
don't say
I love gabbing. Slid, don't say
black, don't
stuff,
say
don't say cows, don't say
stuck,
cow,
don't say
Suck.
drag, don't say
gags,
rude.
presents,
Gags.
don't say
Fun.
gags,
Stop, don't say
empty, don't say
Stump.
Okay, let's pause for a moment. Now, the next is harder. This is getting more like our tracking. Cold, instead of say sold. Okay? Clock, instead of say pull, lock. So you gotta think a bit when you're pulling the words. So try that.
For the blends, are you giving them the blended sound, or are you having them blended?
I'm actually saying the word clash and then slow it down if I need to. But I want him to be able to hear the word clash and see if he can pinpoint to all.
So you would say clash and you instead say p instead of k?
Okay, well, if we're at the blend deletion, I just say don't say, but if we're at the first letter, I'll say cold instead of k, say s, clock instead of k, say k, look instead of ul, say t, tuck, took, you know, etc. All right? Go for it.
I'm not gonna get fired today.
Oh, yeah.
Let's do walk instead of what? Say
Cock.
yes.
Kid.
Instead of stump instead of we're just doing one letter.
I think we're just doing one. Yeah.
Stump instead of
Grab instead
say
of
push.
It's hard to
Choose from.
That's what it is.
I know.
Pick instead of
And you're going like
say
five. You would never get through the rest of the lesson. It's over.
ranch instead of say
Ran instead of say.
bench.
Good.
Damn.
Or instead of I should just
Okay.
say slower.
All right, let's go to last letter substitution.
Yeah.
I know.
Hip instead of p, say k, ks, so it'd be hicks. Crash instead of sh, say ch, cratch. Okay? So you're making the last letter or last blend substitution.
Are you trying to like make real words or?
I'm doing this from real words here and real words from the book.
But I mean, like when you give cause like if I have hip, I can make it into hit. Do I
No,
want
I'm not
make
trying to
something-
create a new word.
Yeah, okay,
I just start with a real word.
okay.
These are not nonsense.
All
These
right.
are real.
They're
That's what
real.
you're trying to ask.
My question is like the goal, is it to make another real word, like from
No.
hip to hit, or
No,
like
no,
just
no.
anything?
That's too complicated.
Okay.
Just want to keep it straightforward.
Like just whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, just as long as it makes sense. Like,
Does it?
yeah,
Instead
you
of
wouldn't go
Does fish really make sense?
remove the first letter
Is it
instead
me?
of kick, put a x, well, kick, that doesn't make
Okay.
sense. It's just gotta make some sense.
Try
But
to
nonsense.
Confuse your students as much as possible.
Make sure they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
Keep them in disequilibrium as
Start
long as
speaking
possible.
gibberish.
I'm just using my cues.
Travel
instead of
old.
We're doing last
Say.
one.
Round.
Maybe S1D. Math.
Sam.
Okay, don't-
Keep in mind, folks, this is
math.
only 1
Don't
minute.
Say
Short and sweet, like 10 words maybe, if you're lucky.
Okay, front
Yeah.
instead of
Don't
say,
Stump.
say,
Good. Yeah, pitch.
Now, you can actually make a couple changes to a word. Okay, you could go, if you're reviewing, jump, don't say jump, don't say jump, jump. Instead of say jump, don't say
Right.
I mean, you can move one word and do a lot. Just 1 minute.
Should we do some with the middle change as well?
Yeah.
Pardon me?
Should we do some with the
Yeah,
middle change as well?
and we're there right now, vowel substitution. So vowel substitution is like fact, instead of say fact. Gotta be careful.
I think
with
like
that.
the goal is to not overthink
Right.
it when coming up with these words, right?
Flag instead of say
Yeah, you do.
flog, all right? So you're substituting the vowel now.
oh, sorry. Do you wanna go this time?
Bad instead of say
Pick
All
instead
right.
of if, say
Lost
ah.
instead of aw, say
hid
ah.
instead of it,
Last.
say
Oh wait, it's my
Word is pick.
oh
Drag instead of add, say
Cross
Say what?
instead of all, say
Giraffe.
Good job.
Thick
Truck instead of say
well you're missing the last word.
Lost
house.
instead of say
Stuff.
Last.
Yeah, I think I hit the one.
Walk instead of oh yeah, if it's like a weird
No, house.
Guess you
We're
can change it
changing
to
it
that
out.
because it's just the
Grass
from
instead
ass.
of
yeah,
ass,
walk.
say.
You should do a different one from aw.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So sand instead of ass, say
How
But I
about
heard you say Paul's. which
ghost
is-
instead of say
So initially, you may have to write these out
Wait, what am I
initially,
saying?
You
if you're not good at making that up.
Yeah.
Okay, We're at the last one, which is where you do everything to it. So this is where you can go stick, don't say stick, stick, don't say stick, stick. Instead of put an stock.
Oh, I said teacher.
Stick, don't say sick. So you can just take a word and work it, and then go to another word and work it, you know? Okay, let's try that, we'll move on.
Do you have a recommendation for the order? Do you go initial, final, middle, in that order normally as you're making the change?
Yeah, well, I follow this order, which is in the notebook.
Okay.
Yeah, that's,
And then, Steve, do you typically like to do this with one syllable words or two syllable words, multi-syllable words? Is there a
you can do, if a kid does really well, you could get, you know, devout, don't say devout.
Okay.
Devout, don't say evout, you know, that kind of
Use the
thing.
sound substitution that
Yeah.
you change it.
Inlet.
I think that's really interesting, because it's like,
Miss,
the whole
don't
thing about
say
this exercise
Scanned,
is it's
don't
not
say
on board.
Right,
It's about only the
miss,
sound.
don't
Pure
say
That
auditory.
piece means like if you're changing it to a real word, and that word has a
Don't
sound
say
change, then you have a.
Cost,
Right.
don't
Yeah,
say
that's
ah.
That's an important thing to distinguish.
Yeah.
Eliminating.
What made sense to me with the guys I was working with is we're really dealing just pure auditory now, we're not dealing rocus. See, when you sound out a word, this has to connect to Heschel's gyri, so you know what sound it has. You have to go, so what this work is pre-work on what we're gonna be doing in tracking. That's the way I look at it.
For training, I think what happened here was really interesting is that, Marley used a sound that changed the word to a real word, and that real word has a particular sound that's different than the sound she gave me to change.
Oh, I got you.
And so it went from to Paul.
Yeah.
Which I can't see
Yeah.
I can't see the words, I'm
Right.
only doing the sound. So as a tutor, you have to make sure that you're using the sound change, not the letter change.
You're sticking to the word. So flick, don't say, you know, all right, lick, flick, don't say flip, flick, instead of put in a flat, you're sticking to the word. Again, you can do a couple changes with the word, or you can, you know, move to different words. Initially, I recommend a few changes with the word and just play with it.
Do you make like multiple changes to the same word, like keeping the
Yeah.
changes, like flick, don't say k, and then flip, don't say.
All right, so I want you to try that with stand. I'll be the kid, so stand.
So stand.
So let's
don't-
start knocking off the first one. Stand,
Stand, don't say
tanned. Okay, now let's go after the back.
so tanned, don't say d.
Stand.
But would it be just
No,
tan at
tan.
that point?
Pardon me?
Would it just be tan at that point, cause you've already removed?
No, I'll say the word. Okay, you said tan. I just stick with the full word.
Okay, okay.
Stand, don't say
Oh, so
You
you're
don't-
changing,
one
Go
component.
back to
you're going back to the
Go back
new
to
word,
the
and then
forward.
you're changing.
I'm not
your
working
word.
on memory. I'm working
Yeah.
on sound.
That's really important teaching technique right there.
Yeah.
Very good.
Because once you're moving to memory, you can have a problem there that's not
Mm-hmm.
related to Herschel's. It's
Yeah.
it's a problem they all have, is sequential memory. So I go back, I say the complete
Same
word.
word.
Stand, don't say stand. Stand, instead of say is, stand. Stand, change the t to an O, slam. That, okay, that kind of, cool. All right, so that's advanced reading. 1 minute for the lower kids. Okay, let's move up from there. Pre-boot camp lesson plans, those are pretty much the same. And now, as you can see, if you've done a little, just that minute of auditory work ahead of time, that makes this a little easier. Okay, so this stays, okay, so we're now into the boot camp plans, new concepts. That stays the same. And starts 2 to 4 lessons. Okay, so we have the 5 guiding principles. Can you guys see that? If you can't, just grab a look at it.
Yeah, but I think we have this
You have those there? This is again, if I'm talking about the program, I'll have the lesson plan and this in the board, and that gives me all I need. So why don't we glance at that for a moment?
Ours is on page V.
Thank you.
I don't know Roman numerals.
Oh, it's like at the end.
Fair enough. If you said the number, I would've gone to the page.
I think it's
Yeah.
page 5 technically in the slide.
It's, yeah, it's page 5.
It is labeled that way, I didn't notice that actually.
No, very beginning.
Pre-book.
Oh, I see.
Okay. See if I can get this.
Diagnostic.
Carnival will be the next series we end up printing. See.
Only about going down the hole.
I thought it was the dad that fell in the hole.
Straight to freshman. That's fair. It's a good one. I'm glad.
I feel like it seems wordier than. I think his apprentice maybe made.
What was that now?
Less pages.
Oh, I was saying, I feel like there's more, it feels like more words per page. That's
Yeah,
just
well,
me remembering it wrong.
that looks totally different now.
Yeah.
Now, the whole book has picture. The whole thing is a picture, and then you have small pictures in it. And we have them more in little boxes like comic books.
It's probably the pictures that make it.
Yeah.
Does that cause the page numbers to change?
Might have. We also reduced the amount of words per chapter, because there were just too many examples of closed syllables. And I'm going, well, if you can do cat, you probably can do ran. I mean, in other words, we reduced it so you're not doing all these words before you get, so we made a lot of changes with that. It's the one I'm happiest with in the changes, I think. But I'm trying to get that up, let's see.
Is that gonna change things back again?
Oh, here we go. Is that what?
I think it's just for the boot camp though.
Yeah, the other one's on the page. I like this, that it has the concepts.
Well, let me give you an example. I can't seem to enlarge it without access, but just so you see what the boot camp, whoops.
Is that on the website?
Pardon me?
Are you showing us from the your website?
Yeah, no, this is.
So Steve, I have a quick question. Are all the boot camp books at like a 0.5 grade level?
Yeah, pretty much. So you see the color background, and it's more like a quotes.
Oh,
It's more like a traditional kindergarten book.
That's cool.
Oh, cute, lots of good pictures.
What we found, interesting enough, aren't those cool?
Yeah, they're like captions.
We found, yeah, that
Yeah.
we could use full color pages and it didn't cost us any more than what we were doing with the small color, so.
what color printing, it doesn't matter how much.
Yeah.
color's on the page.
Yeah, put all the color on. Every word is a different. Every letter. I would have so much fun with that.
Okay, so
Every letter's a
moving
different-
ahead, we have start 2 is labeled. We have the key words that you want for your new concept there to be looked at. And this came because I'd have people in class highlight the keywords.
Mhm.
And George, when he edited that, just decided to highlight them for everyone, which was great. We're marking important stuff, because that's, the syllable tracking is really crucial. Then this is pretty much the same, concept 2. So not a lot of change in terms of the basic program. This is showing the concept 3, advanced, which is rich words. Again, highlighted words you're going to be using for the lesson. So yeah, make sure people know that that's the purpose of this, was to give you the key words to deliver the concept, to stick out of the print, you know, because otherwise you spend time looking for it. So this, I think, is a really good change. The spelling words, I have changed. Once I found out that the sight word technique is working for sight words, then it came down to narrowing the amount of sight words from 150 to 50, and which it did, to the real ones. And then I decided for Moonlight Sunlight, because they're really good words. The ones in Moonlight are all like the advanced sight words, which you'll see. So for spelling, we just use the words at the bottom for the spelling. We'll talk about that a little later. So the reading is the Shaywitz words, and the spelling are the ones at the bottom. But that's not to say you can't use the 50 real sight words for spelling if you want. And if you're at Moonlight Sunlight, these are great words. They're all sight words usually, and they're the tough words kids have trouble, unique. And we'll get into that in a minute. So let's move ahead. I would like, again, the yellow highlights things.
Unique is a tough word. Just sound out.
It is.
What's that?
Unique, I was thinking about that word, that's a hard one to spell.
Yeah. Try rhythm. Anybody spell rhythm?
RHYTHM.
You got one of those minds.
Yeah.
I've yet to have a student ever spell rhythm. I'd give them a challenge. Nobody's ever spelled it. All right, talking, think word, soft C and G. We moved this up here. And we also have it in the back. We have it at both places at the concepts, just to make it easy. Then we have start 3A, mentioned. Then we have start 3B, which is reviewing, tag, and change. Now, we did make a change on the endings, which we'll get to. This is the silent E that I had the computer game with, where you had to drop the E or you get in a crash and nobody could kind of figure out, but again, I have directions there. Make sure you drop the E on words that are adding vowel suffixes. Concept 9D, back of the board, we are focusing on groups 1, 2, and 3 initially, and that hits the actual concept words, which are listed here. So we start with the words that are used in the most frequent words with endings. And then in concept 24, rather than worrying about roots in that, which we don't have a lot of time for, I have a list of all the words that have the higher or advanced endings, like she, ate, and shent, and that kind of thing. Okay. These are really good words for spelling. All right. long E, this is okay. 4A. And we move to 4B. 4C. Cool. Let's move ahead now. Just a note here, once you teach phrasing, teach phrasing later today during reading section if your child is ready to move on from the single word reading. So get it in, get onto it right away. Okay, let's get through the concepts. Okay, so this is concept 24. You're introducing endings, group 4 and 5, and here are words, real words you can work with for reading or spelling or both. So I took the most frequent endings for 3, which are shun and jean and jour and shore and tiv and siv, and those are listed in the most frequent words, and then here I added these at the end. Diagnostic syllables, we know. We added a vowel tag group. It should have been there. Sight words, okay. All right, start with list 1A and have the student read the words. If they can read them, continue on to 1B. Once finished with the list, you can go to the game section of the sight word, game 1. Continue to sight words 2A. So what was confusing when I showed this to you guys was the game said 1, game 1 for the sight words, but this is located at 1A and 1B. So oh no, my games actually will say 1A and 1B, but they're not broken down like this. It just means there's 2 versions of 1. So I've changed that to make it clear that the game is dealing with 1A and B, and it's the first game. Then 1 is dealing with 2A and B, and it's the first game for that or 2. So I changed that on the computer after our last meeting. But, this is just something 1 minute before you read. You just read these words. If the child can read them, fine. If not, you quick teach it. And first we just do it, let's say like the word they. I would say, all right, everybody, let's tap out they with me. Ready? They. Hey, notice that correlates with phonemic awareness, right? Okay. Let's now look at this word, the, a, okay. What's the hard part? EY. That's the hard part of this word, so it's a, they. Now, I'm not going into writing in that. That would take too much time with the plan and only for the spelling words. So I go ahead and have them then draw lines for each, and then spell they, the, a, and then copy it again. I actually title that double tap plus. And here are the procedures. For the reading, the teacher says the word and the student taps out each sound. The teacher shows the word and taps each sound of the word while the student says the sounds. So the A, and then the student and teacher find the hard part, and then it's part of the list. So we can move pretty quickly. Again, what I found with this is with the games, they just learn the words. They just do, which was surprising. And no yawning, at least it wasn't for my guys. They weren't yawning, they'd get into it. And then this shows what the, what's that?
We all just yawned.
Yeah.
Just hearing the word.
Yeah.
It was all like Pavlovian everywhere.
So notice there's these 10 words each, that's 50 words. And then the sight word middle school, I want you to glance at these.
I don't think we have these. Yeah, we don't have those.
Pardon me, yeah.
This is new, this is.
Yeah, we'll get you another copy, so what we're gonna do, Steve, with you guys is give you one keyword that you all use to get materials that George will set up with you. So you can get into the site and get access to the digital stuff. So they, their, said, laugh, friends, knock, people, would, could, should. Some of them are in the elementary list, but those are just good sight words. And in go, ship, you wouldn't, couldn't, shouldn't, not, present. So it's just a good list of sight words. And again, with the game, they can remember it. So it's just the motivation factor. Comprehension, fluency.
For spelling,
Couldn't
for
provide one,
teaching
it was a
spelling of
problem.
sight words, are you still doing things like, oh, you lazy dog words?
Yeah,
and-
those are listed in
Yeah.
the lessons book. Those are the only words we're worried about for spelling initially for the lessons book. And that's for spelling.
Right.
The, and reading really, but I'm separating the two. These are the reading sight words, key sight words, because we can do much more for reading than spelling. All right, some reason these did not go down.
Here, this happens to me sometimes. Can I try something?
I really have to use the restroom. I'm gonna be super fast. I have a lot of coffee.
Sorry. Gotta go far down.
Might run out at 129.
I think this is where we left
Okay.
off and we were trying to get here,
Good.
right?
Yeah, I want to get the comprehension. Right, I'll get. Okay, while we're waiting. So, the basic comprehension when we have a kid is first, can they just summarize? If a child, like somebody at a start 2 or 3 can summarize, we're okay with that, and so then I don't have to ask as many questions, as I did with the comprehension kid, who when I asked what happened, did not have a clue. So point to the who or what, did something, the where and when, and he had a clue. Just simple. So he never really got the concept of a summary or what's important. And that's why I like the who or what as question 1, because that's the kernel of the sentence. You know, it's basically the essence, then where and when, okay? So that's where we're starting with kids. And so you got the who or what, did what, where, when, then the what question. What do you think will happen next? Student can point to a fact supporting their prediction. And what do you picture? Now with the picturing, if you have a severe kid, we will go to the picture and have them describe, basically doing the W's, okay? Where are we at? When is this occurring? Who are we dealing with? Tell me about the boy, tell me about the girl. It's where we're just getting more, and we're using as much vocabulary as possible on the picture. So this is our concrete. Even with the, what do you think will happen next? You can point to what's giving you the idea it's going to happen next. So you can't just like say, well, a guy smashed into him with his car. Well, they're in the water, you know, so that's probably not going to happen. You've got to be able to point to something that helped you predict, okay? So that's still more concrete. Now, the 2 more abstract is the why and wonder questions. So this technique improves comprehension by 15%, the why question. And what it is, by the way, this is a huge hit in the class, is you're getting kids to formulate a why question, then answer it. And actually the kid with comprehension, once we started getting the W's going and we moved to this, he kicked on these, which is, you know, it's pretty abstract, but he'd come up with great why questions and then answer them. So just all along, this just worked very smoothly with him. And then wonder, what are you wondering about? And they can generate anything about, I wonder about this with the story, I wonder about that. I'm wondering about the characters' feelings or his or her viewpoints and advice that may help them with their problem. I wonder if this action was effective or ineffective, good or bad. So you have the wonder questions. Now, for a kid who doesn't have problems here, we will be moving to the gist. You introduce the wave, the story structure, introduction, rising, action, climax, conclusion. As you go through the story, it helps just jot down components of the conflict, the introduction, what are the key parts of the intro, the rising, action, climax, so that they know where they're at in the story. This really helps comprehension. Okay. Then, you know, the basic gist, somebody did something because. So you've got pretty much what's going here, but you're getting a little more into now reasons and inference and thinking and that. And then once they get that idea, you know, you basically have somebody did something because, and the effects were, the problem was, and the solution was. So you're now getting into really the elements of fiction. But if I'm here, I did this with a kid every day. We'd read and I'd give a summary. That's one of the best ways to do it is model. We'd read and I'd do a summary, and that's described here. And he'd read to me and I'd give the summary, then I'd read to him and he'd give me the gist, and then he'd read to me. But we still want to do the why and wonder questions because those are abstract and those are great questions. So here you're just letting them know where they are in the story. So this is now simplified and just to the point, this program. And to the degree you have a severe kid, let's see, I mentioned this.
Do you ever ask a student to write like an advanced gist statement, or do you ever just have them, do you always just have them verbalize it?
You can do that, it's just a matter of how much time I want to put on that. But you can absolutely, if I in a class, that's a natural. Another thing in the class you can also do is for the kid who needs descriptions, have them study the picture and try and draw it, you know, and then answer questions about it. So they study, do they think they got a mental picture, and then they draw it. Let's see. I think that's about it. So yeah, I think, you know, can they summarize? Great. If they can summarize and they get the gist, go to the why wonder. As the kids are a little older, I'd look at this, starts to be introduced in like upper elementary and middle school, is the wave concept. We can introduce that.
Do you have any ways of making this like more advanced and complex for a student who's doing really well on all of this? Like how to challenge them more?
Yeah. In fact, I might have put that here, just a minute. So this gives us you a breakdown of what we're doing here and the idea of how to teach it with think alouds. The, let's see, this is a logical sequence. Okay, severe comprehension issues I've mentioned here. Begin with a picture from chapter and go through the W's for the what question. Have them close their eyes when you ask, what do you picture? And see what they can tell you, okay? Then English language learners do the step 4 method used for vocabulary with a picture before going to the vocabulary. So we're adding more visual here. And that's what in Italy, when I did the 2 young ladies from there, they were mentioning how they use the pictures a lot. And they would like more pictures, actually. Here's a picture of the wave that you can actually write in or copy.
I like printing that.
Yeah. Introduction, rising action, climax, conclusion. Signal words. Now these are words that change the idea. And I've added this because these are something that's used a lot with older kids, but you have the go words. I only had a few of those words mentioned before, but going is like green light. We have the yield, slow down words where the idea changes. The stop word where you're getting a summary, and time words where there's time included. So these can, when you run into like furthermore, say, what does that mean? Well, the idea is continuing, going further. How about the word nevertheless? The idea is changing. It's a slow down word. Stop words. These are stop words and time words. Here's the writing prompts. This is next step I could do for comprehension. There's some cool things here. Who is your favorite character in your book? Why is this character your favorite? What do you think happened? You know, you got a lot of different questions here, which meant for a kid who's ready for a little more advanced stuff. He's got the basic comprehension. We can move into this.
And would you use like excerpts from the book as examples in this writing as well?
Yeah, that's step even higher. That's where you're basically giving a fact, and then you are supporting that fact with a quote, and then you're interpreting the quote. This is what high school English, good high school English teachers do. So they'll basically state maybe 3 points. In the first point, they'll state, and then they'll give a quote. Then they tell how the quote relates to the fact. This is what a lot of kids leave out. They don't talk about how the quote relates to the fact. So, all right. Levels of fluency, okay. Beat the clock, time. Reading, we have pressure release. Oh, we found now that internet's gotten faster. That often the child, well, some places, often the child can read with us in a whisper. Yeah, if you have fast or not. If not, you have 2 points. You can do the echo technique where you're saying the phrase and they read it. The large man, what's it so? Or you can do the whisper technique where they're kind of reading in their head or in a whisper, and then I leave out more words and they're filling the words. That if I want to gain a lot of time, I can use that technique where I just read and I leave out some words. But again, we found in a lot of things, you actually now, in some computers, can actually read alongside the child. It's a repeated reading graph, concepts, the Tattum readers, much more colorful. A word on choosing a book, and then these are the books in the series and tells you what concepts they deal with. A little more detailed. I'm not sure if you have this copy or not. Then this is the old-fashioned one where we just improved it. Okay, questions on any of the things we've covered? Okay, well, let's look at kind of putting this together.
I do have one quick question. Have you ever worked with like a really early student who you had to do more phonemic awareness work than like work on the board?
Yeah, I created a program for that, and that's the initial boot camp program. That the first month to 2 months, and I worked a little bit with one of the students here who was working with the severe kids over there on some of the techniques, but it deals with phonemic awareness initially. It has him, like, you'll lay out 4 pictures and you'll go at, and then they'll go fan, they'll point to the picture. That's blending. And then we'll do over the bridge where we'll have a picture and we'll go cat, sats, and we're cutting off, so it's kind of a precursor of what we're doing later, but more concrete. And then I start matching words to pictures, and then spelling the words to pictures. And then I have phrases that go and sentences that go. It's a pretty elaborate program. And since we weren't working that young there for a while, we really haven't. You know, we start just with the pre-boot camp would be the first books you use there. But that's what I do with a younger kid is the boot camp.
What if you had a kid who was at that level but was an older age?
Like what age?
Like say they're 6, but they're not able to actually do regular boot camp stuff on the board.
Okay.
I guess my question is just like, is there a in-between variation of phonemic awareness between like that boot camp, very, very early picture
Yep.
and working on the board where you're bringing in the symbol and not focusing as much on the sound?
Yeah, it was a pre-boot camp program.
Okay.
Because I do the phonemic awareness for concrete.
Mhm.
And Blendy and I moved from sounding it out and then pointing to a picture to I would just sound it out and they'd have to tell me what the word is. And then I would have these pictures, which I have on the computer still, and they're matching first with the board, they're spelling the pictures. I think they're reading first, and no, I think they're spelling first. Then they read, then I have the phrase, and then they go to the first book. So in other words, you're doing more concrete initially. And now how I've tried to rectify that with, first graders that are low is I wrote the cab and the van at a more basic level, and I've added phonemic awareness there to kind of compensate, for that. So if you're cutting off these different levels of sounds and you're reading, you're introducing 5 letters at pre-boot camp and taking your time with that can be effective, but if not, we may at some point want to be adding that. I just don't want to make the program too complicated. That's
like a one-off.
It's another big component. So right now, I would say the key factor is to do a little more of the phonemic awareness with simple words from their book.
Okay.
Let them know these are words coming up in your book.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're at, the cab, cab, what do you have without the cab? Change that, doing all that with the words coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Then doing the 4-step method with the words I'm reading. And looking at the pictures. Other thoughts? Okay. Well, I think we're done.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.